the crime of homicide or murder, and he's establishing bragging rights here, saying, I'm a Crip killer. I'm going to murder Crips. The white hate groups, such as the neo-Nazi types or the punk rockers or the skinheads, are usually identifiable by the items of clothing they wear. You can see them wearing the military-type boots. A brand name in particular is a Doc Martin. Sometimes they'll be wearing Levi jeans that will also be tucked inside of these boots, T-shirts, maybe a military-style flight jacket or flak jacket, or maybe even a fatigue shirt, and sometimes you'll see swastikas, or maybe the rebel flag, or the KKK written on these portions of the apparel. They're also into wearing some items of leather, some chains. Sometimes you'll even see them wearing things, wristbands or things on the fingers. These individuals are also sometimes drawn to the heavy metal groups and are also accustomed to being in a shaved head posture. However, of late we're seeing some of them actually growing their hair back and blending back in with the norm. With the Southeast Asian groups, we find it very difficult to try to identify them. We find that they're not drawn to any kind of a gang name. They don't wear items that have graffiti on them, and essentially they're not drawn to a particular dress style or clothing item. There are some circumstances where we see a few of the gang members dressing in the new wave style. We are alarmed, though, by this particular group and their fascination with handguns, semi-automatic weapons, probably the most notably being the AK-47. And you should understand that these people at times can be considered very dangerous. Probably the most recent gang that we're seeing coming into play is the Hispanic gang. Some of the indicators we look for are hair nets maybe over the head, dark sunglasses, tan khaki pants, maybe a flannel or Pendleton shirt that is probably going to be open except for the area up near the neck that will be buttoned all the way to the top. You also might want to look at maybe a tattoo on the back of the hands, some dots, maybe crosses, a teardrop to the side of the eye, or maybe even up on the arms, upper body area, or even on the back.
Graffiti is showing up on Portland buildings faster than cleanup crews can paint over them. Graffiti can be found in and around our schools, on book covers, on peaches, and even written in books. So it is important to be aware of what gang graffiti looks like and what it means. And then that way, you can stop it in the classroom. Officer Dodd will further explain.
Gang graffiti is a way that gang members mark the territory or turf and tell people who's in their gang. Also, gang graffiti is used to tell people who they're after. As a police officer, we have to learn how to figure out the graffiti and find out what's going on in the neighborhood. For example, B, 187 means that B is for blood. 187 is the California Penal Code for murder. They're talking about getting rid of a blood, killing a blood. This is called roll call. This is gang members or monikers names of the 47th Block Crips. In most black gang graffiti, you will notice crossed out B's or C's. When a B is crossed out, it means that a Crip wrote it. Crips do not use the letter B in anything. And the same goes for C for Bloods. A Blood will say he came from Bompton, California, instead of Compton, California. White hate groups do use graffiti, primarily in the form of swastikas, or graffiti on their clothing or bodies, such as tattooing, like YOH, which means Youth of Hitler, KKK symbols, hate slogans, or white power phrases. When we look at Hispanic graffiti, we notice the vivid color, the bold lettering, and the terms that they are using are different. The Asian gang members do not use graffiti. They try to maintain a low profile.
And now let's move on to our last category, hand signs and body language, as Officer George Weatherroy explains.
Hand gestures and body language are ways you can tune in to gang members and wannabes. For example, the Crips like to use the letters C when they meet rival gang members or fellow gang members. They also use hand signs to try to create confrontation with rival gangs. Another aspect is body language. The positioning of the hands and the feet, they try to intimidate rival gangs or non-gang members with such stances. Bloods like to use the letter B in their hand signs, and they have similar body posture. The Hispanic gangs do use hand signs, but they don't use them to the same extent as the black gangs as far as trying to create confrontations with rival gangs. They do form the same body postures, intimidating stances as far as their feet and their arms. They like to have their feet in a T-type position, but they also use the duck position as well. The white gangs do use hand gestures, but they're not the same as the black gangs or Hispanic gangs. The 3 fingers in the down position stand for the KKK, and they do like to assimilate the same body positioning. They like to intimidate rival gangs through body posture. The Asian gangs don't commonly use hand gestures, but they do use the intimidating body stance.
Like so many things, pay attention to what's going on around you. Look at clothing, colors, hand signs, body language, and even the writing on the wall. But more importantly, listen to your kids in class. Pay attention to what they're saying. Notice their attitudes and behaviors. Should you suspect any gang activity to be taking place in or around your school, notify your building administrator.